So when I was a kid growing up in the 90s and early 2000s, I was kind of in this really weird in-between phase when it came to superheroes. At that point, there were a lot of really good superhero shows. We had, of course, Teen Titans, Justice League, Static Shock, Justice League Unlimited, the 90s Spider-Man, which is one of my favorite shows as a kid. And growing up in that time frame, it was kind of weird because superheroes were like kind of nerdy, but like also kind of cool at the same time. And it really hasn't been until the recent years, especially with the rise of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, that superheroes have kind of come back into being popular. Now, with the superhero genre, because it's been around for almost 100 years, it does kind of get dull when you see the same thing over and over again. And within the past few years, there's been some really, really good TV shows that have been not necessarily parodies of superheroes, but showing them in a different way with a nice twist. The two shows we'll be talking about today are, of course, The Boys and Invincible. So The Boys is not a franchise that I was really familiar with before the TV show. I had seen ads for it when I had gone to the movies way back in the before COVID times, and I thought, oh, that looks really, really cool. So I gave it a watch, and I ended up loving it. I took a bit of a dive into the comic books, and I gotta be honest, I'm not big on the comic books of The Boys. Not saying it's necessarily bad, it just didn't resonate with me, and I don't really like how the story goes with like its pacing. But I think the show The Boys is phenomenal. The Boys is such an excellent twist on superheroes because it honestly feels to me what it would be like if superheroes did exist, you know, being made by corporations and corrupted by corporations to have brand deals, right? So they have action figures, clothing line, food sponsorships. They have their own movies and endless going franchises, also while actually fighting crimes that you could argue may or may not be staged. It's interesting to see that. And what makes The Boys so good is that because it is so realistic and it is so dark. Now, of course, who the Boys are a group of humans, most notably Billy Butcher, joined by our protagonist Huey, Mother's Milk, Frenchie, and then, of course, the female. And it is their quest to stomp out and take down superheroes once they've become too corrupt or once they've become evil, or if they do awful things, they are the ones that are going to go ahead and punish them for it. Now, all of the boys, except for the female, don't have superpowers, so they're not super strong, not super fast, they're just regular, ordinary people. And it's very interesting to see what they do to try to take superheroes down and the ways that they have to get around superheroes' powers, right, to hurt them. One thing that I think is really cool about it, though, is that when the superheroes that they're fighting, when they use their powers, it's always sparingly. It's not some type of Superman comic where the evil character Homelander is shoving out laser eyes every single episode. No. It's more grounded than that. It's more about actions and conversations. But when the superpowers come into play, you know it's going to be serious. I'll give an example during the end of Season 2. At the end of Season 2, something happens, and Homelander, the villain, is rushed by a group of corporate army guys. And they don't show it, but it's implied that he uses his laser eyes to destroy all of them, because the next scene that we see him is he's like drenched in blood. Or there's a scene where Homelander uses his laser eyes like through a crowd. Not really, it's kind of a fake out. But the way that they show him, the laser beam cutting through all the people, it really has power and weight to it. Now, if he was going off shooting laser beams every 5 seconds, it wouldn't have any significance when he would do it. And the same is true for the other superhero characters, too. The Boys has excellent writing, very good fight scenes when they do happen, and its characters are just written so well. It's an absolute delight to watch, and I can't recommend it enough. Comic books, not really my thing. Go ahead and watch the TV show if you have Amazon Prime. You won't be disappointed. It's great. And, of course, my favorite, Carl Urban, steals the show as the semi-anti-hero Billy Butcher. Absolutely fantastic. Now let's go ahead and let's talk about Invincible. Invincible is a comic series made by Robert Kirkman, who is the original creator of the Walking Dead comic, and then, of course, the designer for the Walking Dead TV show, which, you know, it's gone on a bit too long, hasn't it? Invincible is his take on superheroes, so he's gone from zombies to superheroes. I had seen trailers for Invincible. I'd never been familiar with the comics before. I have no knowledge of them, and I haven't really looked into them too much to really have an opinion. So all I really have to go off is the first season. Invincible starts off like a lot of stereotypical superhero stories. Starts off with Mark Grayson, a teenager in high school, finding out that he has superpowers. His father, who he knows, is Omni-Man, who is the Superman character of this world, basically not almost indestructible. And it's the story is about him coming to become a superhero and learning to use his powers. It sounds like a very generic story in the first episode. You know, his father goes the basics of flying and movement and punching and fighting. And the episode ends with a bit of a twist. Spoiler alert. In this episode, Omni-Man fucking kills every single one of like the Justice League of this world. He slaughters all of them, and it's like super gory. And this is when you kind of get your toes dipped into the series and you realize, this is not going to be your typical coming-of-age hero story, is it? It's not. The first episode has a lot of that gloss of what we think superheroes to be. It has a lot of that, oh yes, we're going to be super and save the world and save everyone. And the second episode, there's this invasion from people from another dimension, and Mark can't fucking save people. The main character, whose name is Invincible because he is invincible, he gets fucking fucked up. And like a lot of people die and people start exploding and there's lots of blood and gore. And I mean, it gets pretty nasty. And that's when it takes, very similar to The Boys, this more realistic approach of what it would be like to be a superhero when you're fighting villains. I mean, people would die. You would see horrible things happen and you have to live with that. Well, Invincible is a good TV show. I do have some gripes about it. I'm not necessarily thrilled with the way that they handle everything. When they use 3D animation, you can really tell, and it looks like crap. When there's 2D character models, they instead of like animating a character ascend or descend, they just kind of shrink it or make it bigger, which is obvious. Like if you point it out, you go, ugh, that looks a bit shit, really, and it does. Good number of the characters are written very, very well. I like Mark. I like his mom. I fucking love Omni-Man. You know that new meme going around with a guy going, "Think." That's Omni-Man. I love Omni-Man as a character. I think he's interesting. You see his struggle with what he did, and you see the reason of why he had to do it, especially in the last episode of the first season, and it's so interesting to watch. A character that I like is Atom Eve. She's a superhero girl who has the ability to like make light beams, but also reconstruct and deconstruct things on the atomic level. I know, fucking ridiculous, but really, really cool. She's a great character. I really like her. I like her relationship with Mark. I like how she, leaves her abusive father behind to become a superhero, but not in the normal sense. And she's very, very interesting to watch. I also like the Robot character. Robot's pretty cool. A little creepy, because he kind of has this thing for a girl who's like 22, but she looks like she's 12. That's a little creepy. But the two characters that I fucking hate are Rex and Amber. Rex is Adam Eve's ex-boyfriend, and he's just a douchebag. There's no redeeming qualities to him. He doesn't use his powers in a cool way. He's just a fucking asshole, and I just hate him. He's just so annoying. I can't stand it when he talks, when he's on screen. But then we get to Amber. I liked Amber at first. I really, really did. She was this attractive girl that Invincible liked, and they were kind of dating. You start to think that, there's going to be conflict because he's a superhero and he can't tell her. But it comes about in just the worst fucking way. So there is an episode where Mark, Amber, and Mark's best friend go to a college to see Mark's best friend's boyfriend and to get a taste of college life, because Mark is thinking he wants to drop being a superhero and he wants to go ahead and live a normal life. Well, what happens is there's a crazy guy in the college who turns people into cyborgs, and one of the cyborgs attacks them. So, because the cyborg attacks, Amber goes for Mark to get out of there, and she sees that he's gone. Of course, he's so fast. Like seconds later, he's as invincible, and he fights the robot, and it ends up killing itself. But then once he turns back into Mark, Amber fucking freaks out at him. Is like, "Well, you're such a coward. You left when I fucking needed you." First things first. What the fuck do you think Mark is gonna fucking do if you think he's a regular human against a goddamn cyborg that's ripping people apart? Just fucking saying. But the next episode, right? So she freaks out and she breaks up with him and she just treats him like shit. The next episode, Mark tells her that he's invincible, and she says, "I know." fuck do you mean that you know? So you knew he was invincible. You saw him fight that fucking cyborg robot to save your sorry ass, right? But then you call him a coward and then break up with him because, oh, he's not being honest. And it's like, have you fucking seen the shit that he's been through? I mean, there's a scene where he gets, like, impaled by this battle war cat thing and fucking splits him open. And it's like, Amber, can you have a little shred of fucking mercy for this guy who's doing his best in, like, the worst situation to be a superhero? And what pisses me off the most is she freaks out and she gets mad and she breaks up with him and she's like, "Oh, well, you're such an asshole, Mark," which I don't get, because Mark is nothing but kind and nice to her. He is not being an asshole throughout the entire series. But then at the end, and this is a big spoiler, after mercilessly getting beaten near to death by Omni-Man, his own fucking father, after hearing that his own mother is a pet to Omni-Man, and Omni-Man is this, he's coming to bring the Earth into this galactic empire, and that's why he slaughtered all the heroes, so there's no one left to fight them. She's just like, "Oh, well, maybe we can take a second chance." Fuck you, Amber. She is one of the worst written characters I've ever seen, and she started off great. She started off as this, like, little rough and tough tomboy kind of character. We can all get behind that. But she's just so unreasonable with Mark, and especially after seeing how he is beaten and broken, and he gets so hurt. And she just has no empathy for him whatsoever until, like, the final moments. If they had taken the time in the show to flesh out her and Mark and being together and maybe make it somewhat understandable on why she'd be mad, okay, I get it. But she's just so fucking unreasonable. Absolutely hate Amber. Do I think it's still worth watching? I do. I think it's one of those shows that's going to have a rocky first season, and I believe that seasons 2 and 3 are already confirmed and going to be in the works. But I think this is a show that's going to get better with time, and if the writers take the criticism that they've been getting for this first season and they really work on themselves, I think they can get to a level which The Boys is. I personally don't have a lot of complaints about The Boys. I think it's a fantastic show, and it's super well executed. Invincible has such a good concept and really good moments, but it does kind of fall on that Robert Kirkman trend of just kind of being super violent and super gory with no real purpose sometimes. I think with time, it could get better. So I recommend giving both of these shows a watch. They are some of the most interesting superhero shows that I have seen in a long time, and do really break the mold and have and they do have a much more interesting story to tell than just your basic DC or Marvel story. Well, hey, thank you guys so much for watching this episode. I'll see you in the next one.